You know, they say the true mark of a speaker is to be asked back to an event. And this is, I think, the 5th time you have been here, Michael. I would direct your attention to page 18 of your program booklet. And there you will see a detailed bio of our speaker. I will not read that. I'm sure that most of you are able to read on your own. But I do have a few things I want to say about Michael. As I said, the true mark is to be invited back, and this is at least the 5th time that Michael Angelo Caruso has been invited to be here at Mid-South Pets. And I have heard all of his presentations, and I look forward today in hearing it again. Even though I have heard it before, he changes it every time. Michael and I were talking before I came up here, and I said, give me something to tell about you other than what's in that written bio. And he said that he was a lifetime Rotarian. Now, I noticed in his written bio, in the very first paragraph, it says, Mr. Caruso joined Rotary as a result of his life-changing group study exchange to South Africa. You know, we all talk about things that change our lives. We always hear this saying that once I was lost and now I'm saved, and religious service. Well, when you say you're a lifetime Rotarian, and I would like to think, and Michael said I could do what I wanted to with that he had a life-changing experience because of the GSC group. And life started for Michael at that point, true life. And I think that's the same with all of us that are here today. Life really starts when you start giving of yourself, as all of you president-elects are doing. Michael teaches, as his bio says, presentation skills to groups. And he charges money for that when he goes to corporate groups and other groups. But I have to tell you that Michael does not charge Rotary for these presentations. And depending on where he's going and who he's talking to, he normally gets somewhere around $4,900 a pop. So the last 5 years, you might say that Michael has donated in materials, assets, roughly $25,000 to Mid-South Pets. Let's give him a hand. Not to massage his ego, but to let you know how dedicated a person that he is to you president-elects, to help prepare each one of you for your year as a president of your local Rotary Club. Michael's going to be giving us a lot of practical tips. It's going to be fun, I promise you. You have on your table a handout. Please go ahead and start getting those before you. There should be enough for everybody at each table. And Michael will be utilizing those as he goes through his presentation. So please get those out and be ready to use them. Now, I would be remiss also if I didn't add one other thing about Michael Vincent Caruso. In years past, he's always been here by himself. But he has greatly improved his public image this year by having with him his girlfriend, Jen Nagel. Jen, would you stand up and let us recognize you? Stand up, Mr. Mayor. And Michael, we do appreciate your sharing Jen with us. The old saying is, if you're an Elvis Presley fan, as many of us are, that Elvis is in the house. Well, my friends, Michael Angelo Caruso from the Rotary Club of Troy, Michigan is in the house. Get ready to laugh and learn with Michael Angelo Caruso.
Thank you, Wade. You know, when a judge says it's going to be fun, you can't always believe it. But today, maybe you can. It's great to be back with you. What a pleasure to be here. President-elects, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. And it's going to be an amazing year for you. My talk today is on leadership in 15 seconds. You know, a lot of things can happen in the first 15 seconds of any interaction. They say that employers can tell if they want to hire you within 15 seconds. There's a book called How Doctors Think by Dr. Jerome Groopman, who says that doctors diagnose you within the first 19 seconds of a doctor visit. You decide whether you like someone in 15 seconds on a base level. It's absolutely true. And in the first 15 seconds of any Rotary meeting where you're holding the gavel, people will decide whether it's going to be a good meeting or a long meeting. They're all good, but some of them are shorter than others. So in the first 15 seconds of my program, I want to give you something to write down that is golden. You can take it to the bank. My good friend Bo Porter mentioned that a lot of you are perhaps serving as president in a reluctant capacity. I want to remind you of something, whether you think you are reluctant or not, that Rotary will never ask you to do something that you're not capable of doing. Would you please write that down? Rotary will never ask you to do something that you can't do. We believe in you. In some cases, we believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And that's okay too, that's fine. You know, some years ago, a lady was given a ticket for driving alone in the carpool lane in Southern California. Has anybody ever been to Southern California? You know, they take carpooling very seriously there. And she was given a ticket, and the officer, of course, issued a citation, and some weeks later, the woman shows up in front of the California judge, Wade, and the judge looks down the bench at this woman, and he says, "Miss, you were given a ticket for driving alone in the carpool lane. What could you possibly have to say in your defense?" And the woman said, "Well, Your Honor, at the time of the citation, I was 6 months pregnant with my baby. And since I believe my child is a human being, my unborn child is a human being, I was not alone in the car at all. I was with my new son, David." And the judge thought about this for a second, and then he said, he looked down the bench at the woman and he said, "Well, okay, it's an interesting point," he said. And then he charged the woman $2,000 for having two people behind the wheel at the same time. Which is an interesting perspective, isn't it? And that's what you're about to have, ladies and gentlemen, an interesting perspective, a new perspective on Rotary. And in my 5th year, I think, with pets, I have a new perspective on Rotary. Do you know why? Because 2 weeks ago, I attended my pets conference. I'm going to be president of my club next year with you. So I feel your pain. And I feel your excitement. I feel it's about time I become president of my club. I am not reluctant at all. I can't wait to get started. I've spoken at 25 pets all over North America, and for the first time ever, 2 weeks ago, I was at a Pets and I'm supposed to be there. I wasn't president-elect. And so I sat through all the programs, and I thought I knew about Rotary after being at all these Rotary events. I thought I knew what I was doing. And there's so much to learn about this organization. And so much about it will make you a better president if you're familiar with your content. We'll talk about that as we continue. You all have your handouts available? I want you to get a pen. If you don't have a pen, I'd like you to find one, please, because we're going to give you some information that's going to be very helpful for you. One of the things I learned at PETS last year, at Great Lakes PETS, the event was held in Kalamazoo, Michigan, is that there was a consulting firm that consulted with RI, because RI wanted to, they're doing all of this with public image now. Where's my friend with public image? How are you, sir? You know, I've also been asked to look after public image from my district, 6380, by DG Don Rydell, and he asked me to do it. I said, you know, Don, I'm going to be busy this year. I'm going to be president of the club. And he said, we never ask you to do anything that you can't do. And I said, Don, I want you to use that line, but not on me. And so maybe we can talk a little bit later and share some best practices. But Rotary is on this public image thing big time right now. And so I'm going to help relay that message to you and reinforce reinforce that message to you about ways that you can do better with public image. So they asked this consultant firm, they had to do some research and some discovery work on what's happening with Rotary, and they discovered 3 things about our organization that I thought you'd like to hear today as you're on the edge and precipice of becoming president. The 3 things they learned, they reported back to RI. Number 1, this organization has all the attributes needed for being a great organization. Now they didn't take that phrase lightly, a great organization. Do you know we run one of the top 50 foundations in the world? The Rotary Foundation, one of the top 50 foundations in the world. That is huge. The second thing they reported to us is that we have something that people want. What do you think that is? Shout it out. Fellowship. What else? We do good work for people, right? What else do we have that people want? We have chicken for lunch. And lots of it. We have camaraderie. We have networking. We have a lot of things that people want, our clubs. So don't think for a second that people don't want to join Rotary. I don't want to hear about numbers declining in membership. Because if they're declining in membership now, ladies and gentlemen, it's your fault. You're the president. You could blame other people before, but now it's on you, baby, right? And the third thing that the consulting agency learned was that the world, I love this one, the world is moving toward us. Write that one down. That's a beautiful thing to wake up to in the morning, that the world is moving toward you. I do so many motivational talks all over the place, and I love that phrase. Talk about being, what do they say in the credit card business? Pre-approved. You know, the world is moving towards you. What a great way to wake up in the morning. And why is this true? Well, because the economy is improving, ladies and gentlemen, isn't it? And because we're becoming more socially conscious as a culture. That's good for Rotary. That steps right into our game plan, man. And what else? Oh, we're becoming green, right? And efficient, just like Rotary is becoming green and efficient all over the place. And communication has never been easier. Free communication tools, networking tools, social media, if you will, that are becoming monster tools for getting out the good word about Rotary. We have some programs for you dealing with social media in sessions at this conference. And so, my fellow presidents, we're talking about something called marketing muscle when we talk about this thing called getting the word out and communicating better. So I want to give you a quick example of how you can use efficient communication to run a better club. I want to start with something called the news article. Just that simple, the news article. And I'm going to give you 4 ways that you can repurpose the content of a very simple news article. Say it's the article, it's a summary of a fundraiser or something that you've done. Just a simple article. And I'm going to tell you the many different ways that you can repurpose that story. First way is you would issue it as a press release. This is the old school way, right? You issue it as a press release. Now, what do we know about people who read the newspaper, ladies and gentlemen? What demographic are we talking about? In general, older people are reading newspapers. So, if you want to promote your club and gain more senior members, keep putting articles in the newspaper, because that's who's going to read them. And we want old members. We want anybody that wants to be a good Rotarian, absolutely. But we'll learn a little bit later that if you want to collect younger members, newspapers won't work for you. So where else can that article go? How about in, for example, Club Runner or DACDB? How many of you use Club Runner for your website, your club website? How many of you, that's all for Club Runner? Just 5. Okay. How about DACDB? Anybody using DACDB down here? Okay, very good. It's good to have a choice. The third place that article can show up is as a Facebook note on your Facebook club page. If you don't know what this is about, you can like my Troy Rotary Club's Facebook page very simply by going into Facebook, typing Troy Rotary. The Troy Rotary flag will come up, and then you can click and then you like our page. You can steal or borrow ideas from us for marketing and beginning your Facebook page on Rotary. It has more traffic than our Club Runner page. Isn't that something? So there are different ways you can repurpose. The fourth way, of course, is take that very same article, President, and you're busy people, so I know that you're going to like these tips that I give you for being more efficient. you put that same article in your district newsletter. You send the article to 4 different places, and all of a sudden you're getting a lot more bang for your buck. Now, we talked about social media a minute ago, and marketing muscle. You see, as club president, you're in charge of promoting your own club now. So I'm going to show you something that's so cool. It's the first time I've ever done it. I've never done this in front of any kind of a group, let alone a group of 420 people. But I'm going to go out on a limb here that you're bright people. You'll be able to figure this out, even if you're not currently using a social media platform called Twitter. But let's find out. Just by curious show of hands here. How many of you are on Facebook? Hands up. Excellent. Put your hand up again if you're on Twitter. Okay, how about LinkedIn? Okay, very good. Anybody on Google+? Anybody on YouTube? Does your club have a YouTube channel maybe? Okay, good. All right, Twitter fans, hands up again one more time. Would you stand up if you're on Twitter? Do you have your cell phones with you? Pull your cell phone out if you're on Twitter. We're going to do a mob tweet right now. If you're not on Twitter and you'd like to look over the shoulder of somebody who is on Twitter, please do. I'd like to show you how this works and how simple it is. How many Rotarians are there in the world, ladies and gentlemen? 1.2 million people going to breakfast, lunch, or dinner every single week. Log into your Twitter account if you have a Twitter mobile application. If you don't, stay with me. 1.2 Rotarians going to some kind of meeting every single week. Stay standing if you're going to do this with me. I want to see the look on your face. Now, what if we could teach 1.2 million Rotarians to send a message on Twitter or Facebook, even check in on Facebook, and promote our own organization? How cool would that be? So on Facebook, there's a message system called check-in. Are you familiar with that? Raise your hand. So you can check in right now to the Music City Sheraton and give a shout-out to Rotary. Let me show you how this works. So you're on Twitter, raise your hand if you're with me. You can do a post right now. Look at how easy this is, everybody. So you're going to type into the post right now, attending president training, just do PRZ. Everybody will know what PRZ is. You're busy, right? You're busy Rotarians, busy presidents. Attending Prez training. Speaker Caruso is fantastic. That's C-A-R-U-S-O. Now, if you use a hashtag before the word Rotary, everybody that wants to search Rotary on Twitter to find out what's going on with Rotary will see your tweet. You can do this to promote your club, you can use it to promote your fundraisers, you can use it to promote your training sessions or your district conferences. How about a round of applause for my Twitter friends? Thank you for the demo. If you want to know more about how to check in on Facebook, just stop in the hallway. I'll be here all weekend and I'll show you how to do it. It's an amazing way to get the word out for your great clubs. So you're in charge of, if you're still taking notes with me, 2 things as a club president. The first is education, and you're also in charge of entertainment. To be a good president, in my opinion, you have to be good at both. I'm going to be try to be good at both this year. So the education comes in terms of content. Content, very important. And it's got to seem like you know your stuff, because we all have seen weak presidents. Let's be honest. Raise your hand if you've ever seen a weak president in action. I know, I've been there. It's not fun. I've seen weak DGs in action. No. Oh, yes, I have. Oh, yes, I have. I was at a PETS recently where the DG was asked to stand up and announce which clubs they represented, and the DGs couldn't remember their clubs. How do you think that looked? And what's funny is everybody in the room kind of giggled as if it was funny. I didn't think that was funny at all. I thought it was embarrassing. So you've got to know your stuff, or people are going to perceive you to be a weak leader. And if they perceive you to be a weak leader, they're going to give you what's called the no confidence vote. It's not official. They just do it behind the scenes. And they write you off in the politics, what they call a lame duck. And they give up on you as president. They'll give up on you in the first 100 days. That's how they do it in politics. The first 100 days is when you show what you've got. Right? And I don't want you to have that happen to you. So I want you to be a strong leader. So I want to show you a little thing that I've done that's kind of fun. We're going to show you how to achieve, be able to impress people with your content. Of course, for DGs, it's as easy as knowing which clubs you represent. To impress you today, I realize I may have to dig a little bit deeper. So I prepared something that I thought you might enjoy. I need a volunteer. How are you? Are you going to volunteer? Yeah, come on up. What's your name? Stacy, how are you? How about a round of applause for Stacy, everybody? So Stacy, I thought I would try to impress people that I know what I'm doing in the speaking business, and I thought I would do something that nobody else, I've never seen anybody else do, and I was going to bring it to the organization and see if it got their attention, and maybe I can prove to them that I know my content. And I appreciate you monitoring. What club are you from?
Trustful Noon.
Very good, and that's in Alabama, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I think I visited Trustful, and not too long ago, actually. So here's what I've done, ladies and gentlemen. I thought to have some fun with you guys today is I would do something that I've never done. I did it one time before, actually, and we got a little videotape of it on YouTube, but I thought I could do better than last time, so I would give it another go. And here's what I decided to do. Last week, I decided to fire this guy up again, and I decided I would memorize the United States presidents in order and recite them to you today by memory, just to show you that I studied my content. Would that be impressive to you if I could do that? Now, just to show you a little bit of, maybe you'll be more impressed if you know how I studied this list. I only studied it this week while I was brushing my teeth. I brushed my teeth a lot this week. And what I thought we'd do, Stacy, is have you monitor the list, because maybe you don't know all the presidents, and I don't want to pull a fast one on you, so she's going to be checking the list as we go. You can follow along my chicken scratch, right? Yeah, here we go. And ladies and gentlemen, the presidents of the United States in order by memory. George Washington was the first president of the United States. He was the father of our country, but he didn't have any children of his own. He was succeeded by his vice president, John Adams, but not before John Adams had a runoff with a red-haired kid by the name of Tommy Jefferson. Jefferson was the third president of the United States, followed by James Madison, James Monroe, and John Quincy Adams. The seventh president of the United States was Andrew Jackson, who I believe is still keeping a home here in Nashville. It's called the Hermitage, and I went to see him a couple years ago. He was out. After Andrew Jackson came a guy named, it was Martin Van Buren, and then the first of two Harrisons, followed by the law firm of Taylor, Franklin, and Pierce. How are we doing so far? Am I going too fast for you? Oh, you know what? Wait. I forgot two presidents, and I forgot them because nobody remembers these guys. John Tyler and James Polk. Okay, that's right, thank you very much. So after Taylor, Franklin, and Pierce, we had the first bachelor, the only man ever to serve president without being married. His name was James Buchanan. Buchanan got nothing done. He was succeeded by a guy by the name of Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln, of course, assassinated, replaced, or succeeded by his vice president, Andrew Johnson. Johnson was then succeeded by Ulysses S. Grant and then Rutherford B. Hayes. Hayes was succeeded by a very smart man, probably the smartest of all of our presidents, James Garfield. Garfield was assassinated, replaced by his vice president, Chester Arthur. How am I doing? Arthur, after Arthur was the Grover Cleveland sandwich. Grover Cleveland, the second guy in Harrison, and then Grover Cleveland again. We good? Finally, the last president of the 19th century was William McKinley, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm half done. Thank you. Please sit down, everyone. McKinley was also assassinated, replaced by the youngest of all of the presidents. The youngest man ever to assume the office was my favorite president, Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was succeeded by Taft, then a very smart guy who was former president of Princeton, Woodrow Wilson. Wilson was followed then by Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover. If you gave Hoover the blame for the Depression, everyone gave Franklin D. Roosevelt the credit for taking us out of the Depression. Neither theory is completely correct. Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and then came Camelot. John F. Kennedy, of course, elected in 1960, assassinated in 63, replaced by his vice president, Lyndon Baines Johnson. Johnson was followed by... Are you helping me? I don't need help. Lyndon Baines Johnson. Johnson was had troubles. Nixon ended up taking care of the Vietnam War, but that's not why we remember him. Nixon was, of course, impeached, replaced by his vice president, short-termer Gerald Ford, then Carter, then the great communicator Ronald Reagan, followed by Bush, Clinton Bush, the 44th President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, Barack Obama, the Presidents of the United States, in order, 5 more minutes. So I think that you should know your stuff. I think that's important. Let's talk now about entertainment, because if your meetings aren't fun, it's not going to work. So let's talk about how to make your meetings fun. Meetings are where a lot of what you do happens, ladies and gentlemen. If it's not the actual club meeting, then it's the subcommittee meetings. First rule of thumb, never ever invite people to a Rotary meeting. Here's why. Nobody wants to go to a meeting of a club they don't belong to. Instead, invite them to lunch, or breakfast, or dinner. I invite people to lunch. I don't tell them it's a Rotary meeting. We get there, they say, is this a Rotary meeting? I say, yes, it is. They never ask for a refund. Rotary lunch, everybody. Never a Rotary meeting. Make it fun. Also, you want to be a good role model at these meetings. You know that people are watching you all the time. Did you know that? People are watching how you walk into a room, presidents. Did you know that? And when you walk into a room, you could walk into a room with one of two expressions. First one looks like this. You might call it the resting face or the neutral expression. Even when you came in the room today, you start looking around. Who are you looking around for? People that you know, right? Because you don't want to meet anybody new at a Rotary conference. And that's how a lot of people walk into the room. Well, if you're going to be a role model for your club, you should probably walk in with a different expression. How about this one? How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for coming. How are you? Nice to see you. What expression do I have on my face now? Smile. What word comes to mind in your mind when I smile? What word? Assurance. Someone said guilty. Thank you. I hear 3 words every time I ask that question. I hear the H word, which is what? Happy. Why wouldn't I be smiling if I'm happy, and vice versa? Second word I hear when I walk in with a smile on my face, I sometimes hear the word confident. It's the C word. And the third word I sometimes hear is the A word, which is what? No, not that one. But let's say people do think you're arrogant. What are you going to do about that? I think there's a very thin line between confident and arrogant. And I think if you're the right kind of confident, and they spend enough time with you, they'll very quickly figure out that it's confidence and not arrogance. I think that they'll figure that out. I don't know many Rotarians who are arrogant. It's almost, you almost can't get in with arrogance in this organization. So these are some tricks that you can use to be a better role model for your club. I want to talk to you about the idea of how you can be a better role model for fundraisers, because you're in charge of that now too. We had a club meeting the other day at our club, and I don't think they'll mind me talking about this. All clubs go through it. And it was time to give out scholarships. Anybody going through that? Trying to decide who to give scholarships out to. It's springtime, right? And we had 5 recipients for scholarships, and we only had money for 3. And everybody was quiet around the table. How is it that we can't give scholarships to all 5 of these deserving youngsters? And you know what happened that would make us make that decision? We didn't raise enough money during the year. And you know why we didn't raise enough money during the year? And I've talked to our president about it. He's not the first president to go down this path. Is that fundraisers is never on our agenda at club meetings. And if it is, it's down here. We talk about everything else before we talk about fundraisers. And I think if raising money is important to you, you got to put it at the top of the agenda. You have to make it important. You have to keep it in front of people all the friggin' time. You do. So in this very same meeting, one of the fundraisers that we do have is a couple of the enterprising Rotarians got 2 suites to the Detroit Pistons on March 31st. 2 suites. That's 10 people per suite. We're going to sell the tickets for $100 which is about face value for the sweet tickets. $100, and all the money was going to be donated to Rotary. So if we populated all the seats, we're talking about $2,000, right, Robin? $2,000 is not it's a nice little fundraiser. So one of the board members says to the rest of the board, he says, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think I can sell any $100 tickets to the Pistons. And I got a little vibration in the room that some of the other people felt the same way, that, a $100 ticket was too hard to sell. And then he said something that was kind of amusing. Everybody laughed. He says, I don't have that many friends. And they laughed just like you. And I said to him after, we let that kind of settle in for a minute, and I said to him after a while, his name's John, I said, John, I want to remind you of something. I said that, first of all, you don't have to limit yourself to asking friends to buy the $100 tickets. And in fact, there are a lot of people, John, who don't like you, who would be glad to pay the $100 to go to the Pistons game. I mean, you got to think outside the box if you're going to sell $100 tickets. During the meeting, I started texting a message, because I love to do stuff efficiently, right? I'm texting some people I know who like the Pistons. And I sold the $100 ticket within 10 minutes under the table. And I didn't keep it a secret from my board, my club. And when I get back, I'm going to give John a little lesson on how to sell $100 tickets. And I'm going to give you a lesson in selling $100 tickets if you think you need it. You are in charge of fundraising at your club right now. And when it's time to give out scholarships this time next year, I want you to be able to give scholarships to all the kids that want them. If 5 apply, let's get all 5 of them money to go to school. I think that would be excellent. So let's talk about other ways that you can be inspirational for people. I think that your elevator speech is really, really important. I think that the way you talk to people is critical. And I want to tell you a quick story about something that happened to me on an airplane not too long ago. And I'm on planes a lot, of course, because I do so much speaking. And on this particular trip, I was seated in the aisle of the plane, and I knew the plane was completely full. So I knew I'd be sitting next to somebody, but I didn't really know who. So let's say this is the plane. There's the window seat over here. So I sit down in the aisle seat, and I'm playing that game that you sometimes play on the plane. I wonder who's sitting next to me today. Have you ever played that game? And I know different people are getting on the plane, and I'm thinking, oh, but, she might be interesting to talk to, and she walks all the way past, and then I see a gentleman come onto the plane, a rather large man, and I thought, I hope he's not sitting next to me, because he might be uncomfortable, and he passes me, and then I actually hear my seatmate before I see him. And you know why? Because he's talking on his cell phone. And I don't know why people speak on their cell phones a little bit more loudly than they do in real life. Have you noticed this? And I used to be really annoyed by this until I figured out that this could be really entertaining, to learn about people's personal lives because they're talking too loud. And now I just find it amusing. And he gets to my row, and he gives me his elevator speech, which is this. He actually grunts at me, which I'm supposed to understand means I have to stand up so he can sit down. And I actually understand it. So I stand up, and he's on the phone. He's got an overhead bag that he shoves in over here. He's got a bag that he's going to put under his seat. It's got a luggage tag of a Michigan manufacturer whose name I recognize. So now I think I might know where he works. He's saying goodbye to a child. So bag goes up, bag goes down, he sits down, he's saying goodbye to his child. I take my seat. Now he's saying goodbye to a second child. And before they announce they're closing the boarding door, he's saying goodbye to a third child who is crying so loudly I can hear the kid from my seat. I don't have any children, but I feel this gentleman's pain. And when he hung up the phone, he announced the boarding doors are closing. He hangs up the phone, he does a big sigh as if the weight of the world is leaving his shoulders. And I turned to him and I gave him my first elevator speech. I said, "Daddy's leaving home, huh?" And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, you were listening." And I said, "Well, how could I not?" And he said, "Yeah, my kids do not like it when I leave home." And I said, "Well, how often do you travel?" He says, "About 12 days a month." I said, "Wow." I said, "How many kids do you have?" He says, 3. I said, "What ages?" He says, 5, 6, and 8. I said, what are they, boys, girls? He says, "I got 2 girls and a boy." We gave them S names, Sally, Sandy, and Scotty. Scotty's the boy, and he was the one that was crying the loudest. He's the oldest. I said, I don't know how you do it. I said, what do you do that you travel so much? He says, I'm a sales manager at my company. I said, well, what's your biggest problem that has to have you traveling 12 days a month? He says, I got to make sure my people work a full day. I said, oh. And then he got a funny expression on his face, and he says, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. And what's really interesting, if you break this down, is he's not sorry he didn't get my name. He's sorry he's given a complete stranger so much personal information. I mean, if you think about it, I now know a lot about this guy. I know where he works, what he does for a living. I know his biggest problem at work. I know the names and ages of his kids, right? I know how often he travels. He knows nothing about me, and it's now time to play catch up. So he holds out his hand. He says, I'm sorry. He says, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. And I hold out my hand because I know the person who holds out his hand first has influence in any interaction. Something good for club presidents to know, isn't it? And I start to shake his hand, and he says, what's your name? And I said, my name's Angelo Caruso. He says, Angelo Caruso. My name by itself is an elevator speech. He says, Angelo Caruso. He says, that's a fantastic name. He says, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I help sales managers get their people to work a full day. He says, can I have a card? The lady in front of us says, I want one too. You see how that's a good elevator speech? That's impressive. I'm going to tell you my elevator speech for joining Rotary, ladies and gentlemen. People ask me, just like they ask you, and they'll ask you more as club president, because you're now a lightning rod for your club, whether you want to be one or not. You're the person you're like the first point of contact for a lot of people. And they see this little pin, and what do they say when they see your pin? What does everybody say? What's that? What's that? And you say, well, that's Rotary, my Rotary pin. And then what do they say? It's Rotary. It's very predictable, isn't it? And then a lot of us fumble and bumble, even though we've had tons of practice with the answer to the third question. What's Rotary? The second question. What's Rotary? We bumble on it sometimes. And we say, well, it's a service organization. That's about as flat as it can be. Or it's a place we meet for lunch every week. You want to come? We have a meeting every week. You want to come? And they go, no, I don't want to come to another meeting. And I'll tell you what I tell people when they ask me, what's Rotary? I say, Rotary is the best decision I've ever made. And what do you think they say when I say that? Why? And how many of you are in sales, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah. Judge Schrinker told you that I teach sales training or presentation training, right? That's a magic moment in sales because you're not selling anymore. They're buying, you see? Now I don't have to sell him Rotary. He wants to know more because it was the best decision I ever made. Big difference. Am I right? And if you want to sell Rotary, you've got to reposition that elevator speech. You've got to fix it. And we can do it together. We'll show you how. So you've got a handout there, don't you? Let's whip through it quickly. I have limited time with you, and I want to make sure that we get out on time today. In the handout, we have 5 things that you need to know about treating visitors. Number 1 is that communication reduces stress. You've got to help your visitors feel good about being at the club. Listen to me. Nobody ever joins Rotary without visiting first. Am I right? And when they visit your club, if they don't feel comfortable in the first 15 seconds, they hesitate at every stage along the way. Every stage. They walk in that door and they get a big hug from people and they feel warm and welcome. They're in flow now. They're more likely to join. They're more likely to be vital Rotarians when they do join. So get communicating. Set up greeters and shake people's hand and welcome them. I want to show you a quick trick that I know for introducing people to each other. How many of you are married in the room today? Please raise your hand if you're married. Okay, fabulous. So you have a chance to introduce your spouse often at events like this. I want to give you a great trick for introducing people that you know to other people. Put a positive noun or positive adjective in front of the noun. For example, this is my lovely girlfriend, Jen. You see? Or, this is my handsome husband, Robert. How does Robert feel when you say that he's handsome to a third party?
Happy.
Feels good, sure. And how do you feel when you're married to a handsome husband?
Happy.
Happy. And how does the third party feel when they see that you're complimentary when you introduce people? They feel good about you. So this is a fabulous tip for making sure that the introduction goes smoothly is you want to make sure you use the positive adjective in front of the noun. So, second tip is that confrontation is good. Confrontation is healthy, ladies and gentlemen. The worst enemy, the worst thing that can happen during your presidential year starts with an A, and it's called apathy. Please write it down. Once you have apathy in your club during your year, it is almost impossible to get the year back in terms of excitement. So you want to avoid apathy at all costs. And one of the ways to do that is to start asking questions right now. What do you want to fix in the club? How can we improve our club? When I get back, I'm going to put a survey out to my members about how the club can improve. And then I'm going to take their advice and try to improve the club in those ways. So I'm going to confront them with the truth. What do you think of our club? Tell me the truth.